like to see a couple, Rick's tests of, food that we can see here today.
Nothing like seeing. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. I'm always happy to have interjections during the presentation. So, I'm gonna run through the science stuff first. Get that out of the way. The research and the variation and the meter, all that kind of thing. And then we can go to the practical how-to stuff.
It's
Not,
in
yeah.
the black bag.
That one?
Yes.
Not totally necessary, but fancy stuff. Okay, so just a quick background for those who may not have context. This is where I grew up. My parents' farm is in central Massachusetts, a small town called Barry. They basically bought a piece of land on a dirt road, then built a house and started a homestead, and were actively involved in the organic movement for a very long time, professional careers, etc. So this is just the context I grew up in. I don't have time to go into all the nuances and side stories and things. I'm just going to focus on the research stuff here. Nutrient density here is a term we coined in 2008 to discuss all these this conversation about nutrient variation in food. And the pointer is not working.
It did work.
The BFA was founded in 2010, so this is not correct. It's 16 years old now. With a mission to increase quality in the food supply, our thought was that there is a variation in nutrient levels in food, and if we could create a dynamic where people were supported in increasing nutritional caliber in food, that could heal ecosystem imbalances, it could heal chronic disease, it could have a number of beneficial impacts in the world. So broadly what we say is we want all of the food globally next year for humans to be more nutritious than it is this year. And in 2 years we want it to be better than it is next year. So we want to increase quality of the food supply from a nutritional standpoint, which gives us plenty of space to roam around the world. This is the history of the organization doing educational work. A few people discussed the Soil and Nutrition Conference here already just today. These are some of the people who've spoken. Many people here have attended. All of the recordings from all of the presentations from all the years are on our YouTube page. I'm not sure if everybody knows that. If you don't know that, every single presentation by every presenter every year was recorded and is on our YouTube page if you ever wanted to review or share or anything else like that. We did a lot of work early in the first few years of the organization doing courses. I'm not sure how many courses we did here, 3, 4 at least. At least. This is one of our sort of bases of engagement. But as the courses occurred and people learned the principles and applied them and got results and told their friends, we got invited to speak further and further afield, across the Mississippi, up into Canada, over to the West Coast, out into Europe, sort of spread around the world, these, what I call principles of biological systems, which is basically how did nature evolve things to work for the last 420 million years since plants have been growing on land. Somehow they've been growing on land without anybody adding fertilizer, without anybody adding insecticide and fungicide. Nature evolved a process by which plants grow and seem to do a pretty darn good job of it. And so if we can understand that, not understand NPK, pH, how to buy products and use things, but start with how did nature evolve things, and take that lens into our practices in the land. It can be very empowering and beneficial. And that's what we found, was that wherever people were applying these principles, they were getting beneficial results. It didn't seem to matter soil type or scale or crop type or geography. Wherever you work on the land, if you understand how nature works, things work better if you work with her. And so we got to thinking about how this seemed to be the case, that this was happening everywhere. And wouldn't it be great if more people were working more in harmony with nature? And then the question was, how would you facilitate that? How do you inspire people to work in harmony with nature? And the thought was basically that, for better or for worse, money is a very powerful force in today's age, right? People make decisions based on economics. Paying the bills actually comes before a lot of other decisions based on the way the world works. So if we can align economics with increased nutrient levels in food, with increased soil health, with better carbon sequestration, with better human health, that would be a way to take these principles and bring them to scale. So the question was, how would you align economics with these other dynamics? And the thought was, most people buy food with money, and if nutrient variation exists, if some tomatoes are better than others, if some rice is better than others, if some milk is better than others, if you could choose the better and leave the worse on the shelf, that would incentivize the supply chain to focus on nutrition instead of volume. Because right now, the way the farmers get paid is by volume and aesthetic. They don't get paid on nutrition. So if we could create a dynamic where people could make that choice proactively at the store. You see the Bunny Loves here, the Caloganics here, the Bolthouse Farm there, and that one's 20 out of 100, that one's 40, that one's 80. Our thought is most people would choose the 80 and leave the 20, and they might post it on social that this week Bolthouse Farms is better than Caloganic and Bunny Love. So that was the idea. If we can create a dynamic where people can choose their food based on nutritional caliber, that would incentivize the supply chain to focus on nutrition.
Can I ask a question about the brands that you just mentioned?
Sure.
Not because of that's their brands, but
Yeah.
would you think that different brands are typically better nutritionally than another one? Okay, changes.
We're going to see here.
I mean, I could see between conventional and maybe organic,
No.
maybe not.
No, it's actually quite exciting. I mean, depending on
Right.
what you think and don't think about
Right.
things, what we found. So we had this vision, and the idea was basically that the way it could be done is with a handheld meter, that you would be able to flash a light at the carrot and read the carrot nutritionally. Like, the science is called spectroscopy. It's how the Hubble Space Telescope works. It's how all kinds of technology out there works. It's been around for decades. Everything in chemistry is a vibration in physics, and so if you have a little handheld meter that you could pull out of your pocket and flash a light, it wouldn't take many people, in New York City, if you had 100 people in New York City doing that, going to random stores, flashing lights, uploading readings into the cloud. Actually, this brand is better all across the city. Actually, this store has bad quality all across the city. Actually, these 3 farms at the green markets are always better than any other farms. If that data could be actually measured and shared, we think that could cause consumer choice to shift and facilitate inspiration. So we identified a strategy for how to accomplish this in 2016. There were 3 questions that we thought needed to be answered affirmatively for it to be a viable strategy. One is it possible to build a handheld flash of light consumer price nutrient meter? The second question is, does nutrient variation exist? Is it significant, or is all food uniform like the government tells us? And the third question is, if nutrient variation exists, what causes it? Because the scientists are telling us it's based on genetics or soil type or individual management practices. And as growers, over the previous years, what we were finding was it seemed to be something more like connected to soil health than soil type or genetics. So we began this research project in 2017. We're an NGO, we're a nonprofit, so everything we've done is open source, it's in the commons. The first thing we did in 2017 was raise enough money to build a meter, our first generation handheld meter. 2018, we built our first lab. We had people send in samples I'm sure people here from, were actively involved in that process of sending in carrots and spinach in that first year of 2018 from the grocery store, from farmers markets, from farms all across the US. We had people send in carrots and spinach. And we're gonna run nutrient assessments on them, and we're gonna see what is the variation that exists. In 2019, we set up our second lab at Chico State in California. That year we got up to 6 crops, and we had farmers send in the soil the crops grew in, as well as answer a bunch of questions like, what was the variety? When did you plant it? How did you prepare the soil? What was your fertility program? What were your management practices? Did you irrigate? How often? With what? Did you side dress? Did you spray? As many management data as we could collect, overlaid against measuring the soil, overlaid against measuring the crops that soil grew in. That was 2019. 2020, we set up our third lab in France. Let me see, is this pointer? Doesn't really matter. So you can see, you can't quite see over here in California, but every green icon is a farmer who is sending in crops to the labs, along with the soil that the crops grew in at multiple depths, 0 to 4 and 4 to 8 in triplicate, as well as answering all the management questions. This is just 2020's data. So we did 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. You can see these are the nutrients we're looking at in the food. Not a complete suite of nutrients, but enough to see some things. This is what we're looking at in the soil. Here you can see the number of samples of crops and the number of crops. This is just 2020. So there were 298 wheat samples in 2020. There were 484 oat samples. We did this for 4 years across 2 continents, hundreds of farms, about 10,000 crop samples, 8,000 soil samples. So we got a big enough data set to look and see some things. So the next few slides I'm going to show you are data just from carrots, where we had 398 carrot samples that year.
Will we get any copy of this, or is there a place that I'll be able to see these slides? Because
Bionutrientinstitute.org is where all of our science is held. There's papers, there's reports, there's data explorers, there's absolute
Bionutrient
Institute.org
Thank you.
is where all the science is held. So I'm going to show you some graphs on carrots, but understand that we had graphs like this for 20 other crops, and they all look the same. Very similar. So here, looking at sulfur in carrots, the lowest level of sulfur we found was 8.41 milligrams per 100 grams. The highest we found was 33.19. So 8 to 33, that's a 4 to 1 variation. This carrot has 4 times as much sulfur as that carrot. So if this is 0, 20, 40, 60, you can see there's a bunch of samples. Well, I'll just say the fifths of the range. If this is 0, that's 100. That's 20, 40, 60, and 80. So this is the color range, is basically just sort of dividing it up into 5 equal sections. So you can see that there's a ton of samples between 20 and 40. Right? There's a bunch of carrots that in the 20 to 40 range of top to bottom, and not that many between 60 and 80. And almost none between 80 and 100. See that? How the graph works?
Yeah.
So the graph is the number of samples, it's not the amount in it.
This is 1. That's
Sample.
2. That's 1.
Number of samples.
Right, this is
Okay.
5 right here.
Got
So
it.
20, 40, 60, this is the number of samples. So of all the samples we collected, most of them had a low level of sulfur in relation to what's possible, but the range was 4 to 1. 4 times as much over here as over here. Here's phosphorus, 11.7, 93.69. That's an 8 to 1 variation. So these carrots over here had 8 times as much phosphorus as those. The peak of the curve is in the 27th percentile. Anybody here go to college? A couple of people went to college. When I went to college, we had grades. At the end of every semester, after your final exam and your midterm exam and your papers got submitted and whatever else, pop quizzes, you had a number. Like, I got a 74 as my final grade for the year, for that semester. And that would be like a C, right? Anything in the 90s was an A, anything in the 80s was a B, 70s was a C, 60s was a D. Anything below 60 was an F. Anybody
Yeah.
heard about other people getting Fs?
Yeah,
Here's the 90s, those are the A's. Those are the B's, those are the 80s, the 70s, C's, only one C. These are the D's,
Wow.
and here's the F's. If you apply that range of 1 to 100 and you see who sits above 60, it's not many. Of all the carrot samples we got, not many got passing grades if you think of it that way in phosphorus. Phosphorus, of course, is just one element. And sulfur is a different element. But again, there weren't that many passing grades over here either. Here's antioxidants. People may have heard about antioxidants. They've heard about blueberries are full of antioxidants or pomegranate, et cetera, et cetera. Well, all foods can have these compounds in them. And they're supposed to be good for you. They just generally are health beneficial. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to get into the nutrition very fancy. 4.92, 195. That means these ones have 40 times as many antioxidants as those. You'd have to eat 40 of these to get as much antioxidants as if you ate one of those. Peak of the curve is in the 13th percentile. Vast majority of the sample is below the 40th percentile. Right? There's some people over here doing a good job, but not many. We can see this range, this variation, these are bell curves. Anybody who's a scientist who knows about science, these are like actually nice random distribution bell curves. They're just, the peak of the curve isn't in the middle, it's in the bottom. So our thought is, strategically, if we can get farmers to do a better job, then maybe we can move this peak over to here and over to here. And that's what we hope, is down the road, all food is better for all people.
Wow.
Here's polyphenols. These are the things that, I'm not sure if you believe in God or believe in nature, but there's a thing that you're wired with. Some people call it instinct, which is a really sophisticated nutrient monitoring system. Anybody know?
taste.
Their tongue and their nose.
Wow.
Right? So we're wired actually with really sophisticated nutrient monitoring systems. Whether you think God gave it to you or nature evolved it for you, it's part of who you are. And it makes sense, actually, that 30% of your, who knew this one? 30% of your DNA is associated with the function of your nose and your tongue.
Wow.
30% of your DNA is associated with the function of your nose and your tongue. If the health of your babies is affected by your health, if full system function in food causes it to have these high order compounds that we call flavor and aroma, actually eating things that taste good naturally, not with synthetic flavoring agents, things that, like a tomato that tastes like a tomato, you know already, you don't need any meters or any scientists to tell you, I want to eat another one of those tomatoes and I don't really want to finish this tomato. Wow. So we're completely wired with this. These compounds, polyphenols is the ones that we tested in our preliminary work. These flavor aroma complex compounds, 2.34, 49.75. That's a 20x variation. This one was 40x, this is only 20 to 1. But then here's the peak of the curve is in the 7th percentile. And the vast majority of the samples below the 20th percentile. Like if you were gonna grade this class on the curve,
Minus.
you'd have to,
minus.
like people who got 13s would get passing grades because so few people did a good job. Right? This is the nature of the supply chain. This is hundreds and hundreds of samples from 2 continents, from 4 years, from hundreds of farms, from grocery stores, from farmers markets, from backyard gardens, organic, not organic. This is what is in our food supply now.
I feel like crying. Like, it's terrible.
It's an opportunity for improvement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, according to what's in our food supply now, the question just came in my mind, but how, if you were just to take those general models, in general, they're 20% less than what we should be eating? carrots are 20% less nutrient than we can be eating. I'm trying to get, like, I'm gonna go home and tell my 99-year-old mom what I learned, and she's gonna ask me some basic stuff. So I just wanna say, when you say percentile, we're eating carrots that are inferior 20% of what they should be.
Not even
No,
60%.
100, but 90% of what they should be. Basic, general.
If this is the 7th percentile,
Yeah, okay.
then
Right, 7.
double it just to 14, double that's to 28, double that's
Okay.
to,
Got
you
it.
know, I mean,
Okay,
so here's what's possible that we found.
yeah.
We didn't find the best
Very
carrot in the
small
world.
percent, very small,
We just surveyed, we had random people like you all
yeah,
who heard about our work, send in stuff, and many of the people who sent in stuff thought they were good farmers,
okay,
right? Most people who sent stuff in were pretty sure they had high readings.
I got it, okay,
So all we're saying is, in relation to what could be,
yeah,
most of what's available is low.
okay,
So I like to say humility is a foundational place to start in this conversation.
Yeah.
If you think you're God's greatest gift, if you think that your crops are optimal, like there's no room for improvement, and some people are doing a good job, but not many. Most of us probably have room for improvement, and if we can start with that realization,
yeah,
there's tons of opportunity.
got it,
Right? If you're a farmer, like what that means to me is my competition is crap. All I have to do is get to the 40th percentile, and I'm better than almost everybody. I don't have to be that good to be better than everybody else. There's all kinds of ways you can look at it.
Yeah.
I have a question about how much does, the nutrients does it leave once it's pulled out of the ground, either getting it to your kitchen cabinet, or
Yeah.
to Connecticut from California? Aren't a lot of those losing nutrients?
So what I say is, if when you pick it, it's at 20 out of 100,
Yeah,
it can only go down from there.
right, of course.
So
But
I'd much rather pick at 80 out of 100
yeah,
than pick out of 20.
Well, I'm just wondering how, like, when I buy something and it's been in the fridge for 4 days, I figure it's not as fresh as something that I get the same day.
Okay, so we're gonna look at different things about
Ah.
where things can be found in a minute.
Okay.
All I just showed you was the variation,
Yeah,
and I showed you just carrots and just a few elements.
yeah,
But if you go onto our website, you can find graphs like this for many nutrients for 20 plus crops. Right? So we found this across the board. So that was the first thing is how big is the scale of variation? Because when we, talked to the researchers at the universities, they said all food is uniform. We said we don't think so. If you look at the back of a bag, every single carrot bag is going to say the same number of nutrients, every single bag of beef, every single jug of milk, every single bag of rice is all going to say the same number. According to the government, all food is uniform. No one's looking. No one necessarily, well, some people want to see, but the people who have power don't necessarily want to see these
I
things.
have a question.
Shoot.
Looking at the carrot, it feels like what we call the Cisco food. No
Mhm.
matter where you go, it all tastes the same.
Yeah.
How are those big companies interested in fixing the problem as well?
They actually, what was the question? What am I excited about?
yeah.
That was your question.
No, that was Dwight's.
Dwight's question. What am I excited about? We'll get to that at the end if I haven't brought it up.
Okay.
What is blowing my mind right now is the massive global multinational food corporations who are coming scampering to our door and saying, hey, we know what you're up to. We're pretty sure you're going to be successful in a couple of years. We've done our market research. Our customers want flavor, nutrition, price. If you can help us transition our supply chain, we will use our massive global strategic economic efficiency machinery to change agriculture in short order massively. So that is happening right now, and it's completely outside of anything I would have ever considered. I'm stupefied. All the people that I was brought up knowing were bad.
That's exciting.
Companies, governments, universities, I mean, I was trained that these were the enemies. And what I'm finding now is there are actually some pretty cool people in these institutions, structures, and they have economic incentive to do this. There's actually an economic incentive for them to do this, which is how the world works. Money drives the world. So if we can align economics with the betterment for all, maybe we can actually help make the world a better place. Anyway, I'll keep going because I've got lots to cover. But great questions. Yeah. This is variety. People said that this variety is better, that variety is worse. You know, these hybrids are worse. Open pollinators are better, etc. Napoli, Bolero, Nantes, Mocha, Romance. You can plant a Romance seed here and get poor levels of nutrients, or over here and get high levels. Poor, high, poor, high, poor, high. We don't see any meaningful connection between specific varieties of carrots and nutrient levels. What we see is, based on how or where that carrot is grown, you can get a massive variation in nutrient levels. So what some of the university people told us, which was that genetics was one of the big key factors in any nutrient variation that may exist, does not seem to be borne out by what we found.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But doesn't the seed epigenetics have something to do with that?
I would guess epigenetics does, but this was not about epigenetics, this was about genetics. This was just, is a black crim gonna always have a cause to be flavorful? Not necessarily, right? So I think epigenetics is a massive piece of this puzzle. But that wasn't what this question was. This question was just about variety. Yeah. Over here, some people said soil types or climate zones. You know, this part of the country is better for growing these things. This part of the country is worse. Here we have northeast, east, north, central, southeast, central, northwest. These are USDA climate regions. You know, most people are doing a bad job everywhere. A couple people are doing a good job. I'm not seeing any meaningful connection between this part of the country grows better carrots, that part of the country grows worse carrots. You can see the vast preponderance of people from the Northeast. This was people who had taken our courses, who thought they were doing a good job. Or people who are going to the local farmer's market, or whatever. And East, North, Central, people like, this is back when the courses had only gotten that far. I mean, that was where our base of operations and engagement was. Here is point of purchase, sample source. There's the farm, fresh from your local farm. Right, we got 3 in the top 20th percentile out of 118. Here's the grocery store. 2 in the top 20th percentile out of 110. But the best one actually was found in a store. Here's the garden. 79 samples. 3 in the light green. The rest are failures. Here's the farmer's market. 27 samples. 4 in the light green, so better than the garden. Not quite so many reds. And no, you can't say if you get a CSA bag, it's good.
Any better, right?
Variation is everywhere. And almost no one's doing a good job. Okay, here's the worst one, or the best one, depending on how you think about things. Does this button work? It doesn't seem to work. No. On top is certified organic. 131 samples, 2 in the dark green, a whole bunch in the red. These are called violin plots. So where it's fattest is where the preponderance of the samples are. So this one is fattest in the orange, getting to the yellow, right? The organic, certified organic. Next one is cover crops. People whose cover crops are into the yellow. There's 1 dark green, but still like not exceptional. So thou shalt cover crop and thou art one of God's chosen ones is not necessarily true if nutrient levels is the objective. No-till is next. And then we have till right after no-till. They don't look particularly different, but you know, and the till is wider where it's fat, the no-till is skinnier. Here's organic, not certified. There's people with small gardens that say I'm using organic practices, but I'm not certified organic. Here's reference and none. Reference and none is grocery store, not organic. So see how they're fatter in the yellow? See that? They're definitely fatter in the yellow, and the organic and the no-till and the cover crops and the certified organic are not fatter in the yellow. That means that some farmers who are big and on scale may be not bad farmers. If that's their business, maybe they're not horrible at it. If they've been able to stay in business over decades, maybe they're doing a couple things right. Big is not necessarily bad. These are, as someone who grew up on a small organic farm, whose parents wrote organic certifications, you know, who founded a farmer's market, who've been running a CSA for 30 years, 35 years at this point. This is not what you think I would be wanting to tell you.
Wow.
But I did go to the university, and I do think that the principles of the scientific method are good principles. And that is how we did this project, and this is what we found. You just can't say you're bad, you're good. Right? You're a Christian, you're a Muslim. I don't care who you want to say is good or bad. But like making delineations like that doesn't seem to be founded if nutrition is our objective. Here's regenerative. That's the, you know, the ism of the decade. Definitely fatter in the orange. This is the grocery store organic, and this is the regenerative. There's biodynamic. There's local. Local actually does look better than anything else. Right? It's definitely fatter in the green, you can say. But there's a really good one and a really bad one. So it's a full spectrum, like Christians, right? Anybody know a completely hypocritical, arrogant, obnoxious Christian? Anybody know a beautiful, soulful, humble Christian? Right? Locals like that, organics like that, no-tills like that. All these things, I like to think of them as religions. I'm a Methodist, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm an evangelical, I'm a Catholic. Like, we've got our church, we're better than you guys. No. No, how about we all can learn from each other?
Beautiful.
How about we all have insights that we can learn from each other? Anyway, so some people know the answer. What was the one thing that we found that did connect to nutrient levels in food? Levels of life in the soil. The more life in the soil, the more microbes, the more bacteria and fungi and RKE and all the soil food web, everybody. The more people down there living, the more nutrients in the food. Didn't connect necessarily to certified organic, didn't connect to no-till. Right? None of these things necessarily connect. This is, again, the principle of what we've been teaching in the course. Is it's about the functionality of the living system. And I like to think of all these different isms of biochemistry and microbiology and organic and permaculture and everything else as tools in the toolbox. Right? You want to have the regenerative tools. You want to have the permaculture tools. You want to have the biochemistry tools. If you have all these tools and you understand how nature works, then you can say when nature needs something, you know, which do I need sockets or do I need hammers? Do I need wrenches? Do I need, you know, screwdrivers? I'd rather have a full toolbox of a bunch of different tools that can be used to optimize soil life than to be sitting with one sort of blinkered vision of thou shalt do this and this and this and then all is well with the world. That makes sense? Kind of logical? Kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Here's a picture of the meter. So we did take that meter we built in 2017 and we flashed lights at all the samples with it. Some people may have seen this before. This is the one we built. It's a little bit broken now because I've been carrying around the world and showing people. But this is a really rudimentary, handheld, flash of light, ray gun nutrient meter. We got this published in a paper called Nature Scientific Reports. So if you've heard of Nature, Nature's like a legitimate scientific journal. And they have a journal called Nature Scientific Reports. And we published a paper in there saying, proving that this thing, if you flash a light at a carrot with it, you'll get a reading that spits out on your phone that is scientifically real, that says the level of antioxidants in this carrot is here. And if you flash it at zucchini, it tells you the level of polyphenols, etc. So we were able to show that nutrient variation is dramatic, that it is basically soil health that connects to nutrient variation. And then you can build handheld nutrient meters at a consumer price point to test that. So this was our first questions we started with in 2016 was, is this a plausible scenario to use economics to shift the way agriculture is being done? Does that all make sense? Okay. So that was the preliminary work. This was our opening salvo. Put up, like tied up with a bow. At the end of that project, we said, okay, so our hypothesis about how to change the world is a viable hypothesis. Now the question is, what is nutrient density? Because you can't build a meter to test nutrient density until you've defined it. All we did here was just look at a few different elements of nutrients. We looked at zinc, we looked at polyphenols, we looked at whatever, copper. We didn't look at a whole carrot and what is a whole carrot and how do you say this carrot is better than that carrot. We said this carrot has more phosphorus or more polyphenols. So you can't build a meter to measure overall quality until you've defined overall quality. So we're using the term nutrient density to refer to overall quality. And so we started the project with beef to define nutrient density. We said we'd choose one crop because it's a big project. Everything else we did was maybe over 4 years was maybe $2-3 million. I'm not sure what it was. Actually, I should figure that out at some point. To do beef by itself, we figured would be $1.5 million. We looked at 25 crops before, and we figured all this stuff out broadly to see if this was a viable strategy. But to actually figure out good and bad in any crop, we think is over $1 million to do that work. So here you can see the hypothesis, basically, which is that if animals eat what they evolved to eat, they are better for you. The ecosystem is better, and they are more well than if they eat what most animals are being fed right now, to put it simply, which probably doesn't sound like too much of a radical hypothesis to anybody. The method, basically what we did is, in this case, we worked with samples from 4 continents. Previously, with the other work, our preliminary work, we only got samples from 2 continents. The farmers who were part of it, they sent in their steak from 3 different animals. Again, the triplicate sample model, we looked at over 150 different nutrients in every steak. So elements and enzymes and vitamins and fatty acids and polyphenols and terpenoids, different families of compounds. They sent in the manure for a microbiome assay. We looked at over 200 different species of microbes from multiple kingdoms. We looked at what the animals were eating, what the genetics were of the plants that were in that sample. We had the farmers send in a sample of their fodder, so they went out and they cut it from the pasture, or they took the mixed ration with the corn and they sent that in. Whatever the animals are being fed, they sent that in. They sent in the soil that the fodder grew in. They answered a whole bunch of management questions about how the animals are raised, and then we did human health trials. So feed people, grass-fed beef, feed them corn-fed beef, see what happens to them. And at the end of this whole process, which is where we are now, which has taken a lot longer than I would have liked it to have taken, we have identified basically 8 different nutrients, 2 elements, 2 vitamins, 2 fatty acids, 2 terpenoids, that you can calibrate a machine to. So now, once this paper gets published this year, we'll be able to build a meter that can test nutrient density in beef. You'll be able to flash a light at the burger in the grocery store or at the steaks and say, 20 out of 100, 40 out of 100, 80 out of 100. So with that complete, now we say, okay, great, 1 crop down, how many are there left? There's a bunch of other things people eat, like potatoes and wheat and milk and blueberries. And so we started this project in last summer. We put together what we're calling our treaty on the definition of nutrient density. Our thought is, we're a small nonprofit, this is a big project. Wouldn't it be nice if a bunch of people around the planet were all involved in trying to pull this off instead of us? Because at $1 million, $1.5 million per crop, we're talking tens of millions of dollars at least to do this for the basic staple crops in the world. And even though we think we've done a pretty good job figuring stuff out, it's always better to bring a proposal to thoughtful people and let them throw rocks at it than to just say, we have the answer, we're gonna go do it. So, what we did last fall was, we did what we called a global series of listening sessions. We literally went to all 6 continents where people farm, and we skipped Antarctica. But we literally went to all 6 continents and brought this treaty and said to people that were university researchers, government people, corporates, farmers, chefs, nutritionists, here's our proposal, here's our outline, here's our strategy to do 20 more crops in the next 3 years, to define nutrient density in 20 more crops in the next 3 years. What do you think? With the listening sessions, some people may have seen the newsletters or seen the posts on social. We got critiques, we got suggestions, we got updates, we improved it. We came up with a final treaty, which is I've got copies of here if anyone wants to take one home. And this is, I got a few appendices as well, sort of this is the basic treaty. There's a thicker section which is like in greater detail. So now we're in the process of looking to we're targeting $25 million to do 20 crops in the next 2.5 to 3 years. And part of what's exciting is that there are people in the government, with the USDA and things where there's matching grants, where if we have a total we need of 25 million and we can share with them this plan and they say this is a good idea, they can say, great, we will match 12.5 of that. So if you can bring, $500,000 from here, we'll match you with $500,000. So, and on the other side, we've got some really, really big corporates whose names I'm not going to say right now, that are saying, we are very interested in this. We're very interested in supporting this project. And we've got some of the world's biggest philanthropies that you may have heard of, who are also saying, we're very interested in this. So we're in this dance right now of, weaving together all these allies who can say they find common cause in this project. Nobody has to put a ton in to make it happen by themselves. Everybody can feel like it's something that they can get positive, social capital from. And so, yeah, that's basically the process that we're in the midst of right now. On the research side, I've got 2 or 3 of these signatory forms. The formal process we're going through right now is, now that we've completed the treaty, we're asking people to sign the treaty. And anybody can sign it. If you say, I think this is a good idea, I'm going to put my name on it. If you've got a Facebook page or an Instagram page or a LinkedIn profile or a website, a company you're associated with, for social proof, you don't have to, but you can say, I signed this treaty, and we'll put your name on the website of signatories. And if you give us a hyperlink to some other kind of social proof, like one of those that I said, then we'll put that on there too, so people can see who you are. So you can begin to see the web of people globally who are all saying we support this project, and that's happening simultaneously while we're trying to line up the funders to accomplish the research.
Did you sign up online?
Yes, all this information is on bionutrientinstitute.org. Right now, on the homepage, the homepage for bionutrientinstitute.org is the treaty information. You have to go to the buttons to find all the research and the other stuff we've done. It used to be the front page, but it is not there anymore. So that's what I wanted to talk about as far as the research side. I hope I've not used too much more than 45 minutes. Does that mean what time?
1:47.
Oh my God, I'm completely on time. Beautiful. All right, so maybe I'll just say one more thing about Brexit. I think we can turn this thing off. I think you just go touch it once and then touch it again. Grand vision, all exciting, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. In my, actually, and I'll say one more thing. There's a company that makes smartphones we're talking to as well. And it looks like, well, it has already happened, that smartphone companies have built spectrometers into their phones.
Really?
This, Chinese companies, no American companies have done it yet, but Chinese companies have built smartphones with spectrometers in them. And so the idea here is that once we define nutrient density, anybody who sells smartphones and is trying to figure out a reason to get people to buy new smartphones, if they have a sensor in it, which you can pull your phone out of your pocket and flash a light at the potatoes, burp, or the blueberries, burp, or the apples, burp, then maybe one person in 100 or 1,000 will buy that phone, and they'll use it in the grocery store and the farmer's market. And if they want to, they can connect those readings to, a publicly available app where everybody can begin to actually have real-time information about where better food is and isn't. So that's the whole grand vision, and it all seems to be proceeding along at remarkable pace. I can say ballpark 2030 if we're successful in what we're doing. We'll have 20 plus crops to buy by 2028. Phones going to be coming out in 2029, 2030. So we actually are having people with phones in their hands by 2030 that are able to measure with the flash of light the nutritional quality of the food that they're looking at the grocery store. So there's a couple of years between now and 2030. This is 2026, right? 26? Yeah. So we're about to launch this campaign. They're calling it the Brexit campaign next month. This is going back to the old-fashioned instrumentation called refractometers. This refractometer, people know about refractometers if you're part of this community. They've been around since I think 1830. So this is a 195-year-old technology. This is a refractometer. Very, very simple. It measures refraction. I don't know if I want to go into the science of how it works or not. If you're curious, I can. But we built this Brexit kit. Everything's nicely branded. You can see we've got a little sticker on there that says stuff, and there's one on the back that says more stuff. It's got a little box that almost looks professional. We've got the Brix press, which is just a garlic press, but it says Brexit on it, right? It looks professional. So that comes in it too. We've got the little Brexit coin, it says Brix on it, that you stick in the garlic press, right? When you're putting your food in there, so the pulp comes through to get your reading. We've got the little Brix chart, which has your poor, average, good, excellent for 50 different crops, right? Fruits and vegetables. So this is the best meter we have now. Obviously the tongue is the best meter, but that's individual and not a number, doesn't give you numbers.
Right.
This is like an empirical, scientific, calibrated instrument that you can use one here and use one there and get the same reading. So if you want to get a number, you can use this. So we're finalizing the app right now, and the idea is that people can buy a Brexit kit and they can take their shopping every week that they already buy, or pull some out of your garden if you want to, but most people buy a lot of food at the store. And you can get Brix readings on your crops that you buy, and you can upload into the app the date of purchase, the point of purchase, the brand, and the reading. So if we as citizen scientists are interested in raising awareness now and interested in getting readings now, in sharing with our neighbors and actually figuring out where the best stuff is, we don't have to wait till 2030. There's something that we as a community of grassroots people can do to begin to measure, record, and share the nature of the supply chain and where better and worse is. So if you're on the BFA newsletter list, you will get emails about this. If you're connected to our social channels, the Instagram and the Facebook and things, you'll see posts about it. We haven't decided how much we're going to charge for it. I'm sure it'll be less than $100.
I already have one.
You do. Yeah, you don't need one of
Way
these.
back when.
Yeah.
I have one
To
too.
see
Yeah.
it.
But what about the chart? Can we buy the chart separately, or is that online?
It's just online.
If you go onto the big old-fashioned internet and you just type in Brix chart,
It'll
you can
come up.
download it. I don't need to sell this to people. I'm just saying, we've got a nice little branded, pretty version. The important part is the app that anybody can, update and put their readings into, that has the map function, so you can say, here's my zip code, I wanna see all readings in a 20-mile radius in the last week or last month or whatever. And so, that's the idea, is that we can facilitate a dynamic where people who are curious can begin to, or active or engaged, can begin to collect this information, right? If you bring your shopping home, how much time is it gonna take you extra before you put it in the fridge? To take a chunk out of this zucchini and a piece out of that carrot and a little piece out of that tomato and get a reading. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, right? But if that's your act of, service to the community this week, and you've got a couple neighbors, friends, whoever, that are also curious, and you can say, I'll go to this store, you go to that store, you go to that store, and we can begin to, in a month, we can have a pretty good understanding of what's better where. What you're gonna find is in many cases, the places where you're paying more is not necessarily the place where you're getting better. Which I think will be the kind of thing that people will begin to post about. Right, on social media, people like to have a reason to post about something or other. So, let's say theoretically, we got a bunch of readings from Walmart and a bunch of readings from Whole Foods. And they were either not different, or what was at Walmart was better than Whole Foods. There's a bunch of reasons to think that's what we're gonna find.
This is huge.
Do you think people would post about that if they found that out?
It will
Yeah.
change consumer
Yeah.
where they shop, what they do.
That's the idea.
Big
Yeah.
pressure
This is the
on-
whole idea, is we take the incentive of people to do the best they can for their families, and we help them do the best they can for their families by sharing openly together their learning, the scientific process.
And put pressure on competition. So
Which is
maybe
why
there's
these big
more.
corporates are coming to us right now
Yeah.
and saying, hey, we see what you're up to. We're very interested in improving the nature of our supply chain. It is really kind of exciting.
It should look like both.
Does it take into account if there are any herbicides or pesticides that
Yeah,
get
that's
in
my
the food?
question.
Brix only measures what's called total dissolved solids, which is effectively how watery is it or is it not. The more viscous, the more stuff, the more nutrients, the more flavor in the food, the higher the Brix reading is going to be. We can talk about this in a second, but the application of toxins, sides, right? Herbicide, fungicide, pesticide. Side is it Latin? Means kill. So if you're applying toxins, part of what you're doing is killing life. If it's life that is the only through line to nutrition, what's gonna happen is, what we understand is, it's basically impossible to produce high quality food with the application of toxins. Right? Just because you aren't applying toxins does not mean you're producing high quality food, but you can't produce high quality food in the presence of toxins. So it's definitely not a testing the negative, it's only testing the positive.
I see.
It's not perfect.
Right.
But yes, good point.
So that's measuring how much water, so as I remember, I used to get very low. I was very disappointed in my readings. But
Many
maybe is
people-
that kind of watering too much, or, I had all this.
So
Yeah, we know what's doing it.
what is,
when you
the
say-
meter must be broken. I'm a better
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gotta be wrong.
I didn't
Mess
start.
up.
It's gotta be
I didn't
wrong.
start growing, so.
What Brix measures refraction. So I use, when I'm talking about refractometers, I say, if you were taking a bath and you put your arm in the bath and it looks like it's bent, right? At that point where it enters the water, and you understand your arm isn't bent, it's just the light bending when it passes through the water. And then if you just looked really close and tried to make a mental picture of that, and then you took a handful of Epsom salt and you put that in the bath and dissolved it, and put your arm back in and looked closely, you'd see that your arm is now more bent, or apparently more bent. the act of dissolving the Epsom salt in the water has increased the refractive index, has caused light to bend more when it passes through that water in the bathtub. So, a plant that has structure but not a lot of stuff is going to have a watery sap. We'll just do a British reading here with these apples. This is what Alan brought me for. No, but this is. I just use the press itself. So, this is the high-tech version of the press.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I know.
Press, I have the one with pliers on one end.
So you're gonna get a couple drops of juice.
Except I didn't bring my pliers.
Vice
There we
grip.
go. So let's say it's 12 and a half, 13.
Which in terms of your data is.
So what does it say after 12 and a half?
Average.
Right.
So that's a 13, 12 and a half, 13.
Did you read out the?
Is that good
It's
or bad?
average.
What's excellent in apples?
Excellent would be 18 plus,
Mm.
this falls in the average zone.
Can I see
Is
that?
that a second?
Do we ask if he's at?
Alright, this one's a 10.
Well, they're labels, one is, there's labels
So
on
who
the
wants to guess
bottom.
which one's organic, which one's not organic? This was the 10.
Try.
If that's the
And then what was
organic,
the other
it's a
one?
10. Wow.
It was like 12.
Oh, was
Organic's a 10.
Ah.
The non-organic.
The non-organic is a 12 and a half.
Wow.
Oh,
Did you set this up, Ellen?
I did.
Maybe it's
I didn't
a
know,
jumped
but I
question.
just-
I was gonna ask,
I
I'm
didn't
remembering
want
those
to-
charts with the distribution and the
Yeah.
number of samples. And saying that the tongue is the best Brix meter.
Yes.
So does that mean that all the higher rating produce tastes better? I'm kind of not.
Stronger and more intense flavor.
So did you do this as you were testing when you were doing your experimentation? That you had people taste these things? and
About a
see if they
third
could-
of the samples got tested with the tongue. Yes, absolutely.
Along with, and reading
Along
and
with all the
kind of.
measured scientific measurements.
So
Yeah.
it's markedly
Yes.
different in terms of taste.
We are wired. Who's had a carrot that tastes like a carrot?
Yeah.
Right? A proper carrot is like an amazing thing
yeah.
versus most of what you get in the store. And who's bought organic carrots that do not taste pleasurable?
It's just fiber.
They're just not, which is very good for you. Fiber is really, really good for you, so don't,
Not
demean it.
just, but.
Right,
yes.
but the point is, there's much more that's possible, and a lot of what we're getting right now is mediocre in relationship to what it could be. So, okay. I wanna get to this part. One more quick question.
Are they all pretty, this is mine, are they all pretty much calibrated similarly?
They should be.
Okay.
The way you calibrate it is with the drop of pure water, of
Alright.
deionized water,
Oh,
and it should be 0.
got it,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
Water should be 0.
When you say pure water, does that mean it has to be filtered or distilled? Or
Distilled, deionized, yeah.
Throw that out on.
If you get one of these little things in here, it's what it's for. So take you just take you take your water and you put it on there. Any water's fine, really. If it's within a quarter point, who cares, right? I mean, we're not getting anal. I mean, you can be anal if you want to.
You end up, after doing that, you end up with a little bit of juice from like you're measuring the refraction of light through
That's what I just said.
how much stuff is in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And is there anything that could cause error in
No,
there,
he just
that
pushed
could
the
make it
tool in.
better or worse when it's not a nutrient?
If it's dehydrated, if you have an apple that's like weazened up, or like an orange that's weazened up, right? If it's become dehydrated, then the nutrients are more concentrated.
Oh, I see.
So that would be a way to get a false high reading. All right.
Oh, you just
Yeah.
turn it just like a skinny.
And then make it zero.
This is why Ellen wanted me to do the bricks thing, because everybody's buzzing.
No, right.
We want to hear again about that.
Order in the corner.
All right. I love the buzzing. This is exactly what I want to accomplish. This is why Ellen wanted me to do this. Is because when you actually see it, like when I'm talking theory, it's one thing. When you actually see it, you're like, oh my god. It's a whole different level of like, oh my god. So, thank you, Ellen, for bringing these apples. Yes.
Well, I have a couple of insights. First of all, do they have spectrometers or refractometers for people, to look into ourselves? Our health. It might be easier instead of.
There's a whole thing called RBTI, Reams Biological Theory of Ionization, which is another rabbit hole we can go down if you want to. And using a refractometer and a conductivity meter, you can measure your urine and your saliva and get a whole bunch of really interesting readings.
Okay,
And I'm not going to go into that right now, but RBTI you could look into.
RVTI?
Reams Biological Theory of Ionization, it stands for. Yes.
While you're talking, can I go get some apple juice,
Yes, of
I
course.
don't wanna interrupt.
I can chuck one down there. Okay, did you have a second question? No. Alright, so what I said was I would try to spend the second half of this hour and a half together on the agronomy side. Is everybody ready to pivot to the how-to?
Yep.
Now you hopefully feel sufficiently inspired,
Yes.
that maybe you aren't doing as well as you would like to be doing.
Bigger slice.
Alright. So those who have seen me present before will probably find this, boring. Maybe it's just a refresher course. I always start here because I think it really actually is important. I said that the courses I teach are called Principles of Biological Systems, and actually, we're proposing to do a longer form course at my house, at my farm in Massachusetts, on this. I'll lay that out right now. So what's being planned in the next 6 weeks or so, maybe 2 months, is we're gonna do a series of lectures like this in New York, in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. Connect with our local, community, some of the better farmers around, and say, who here actually wants to get to the point of accomplishing excellent bricks? Like, it's one thing to take a 2-day course and come and be like, oh my god, this is amazing and inspiring, but how about like a 3-year process where we all come together and we learn and we share and we collaborate and we get together every 3 or 4 months and we actually work to accomplish it together.
That'd be great, because I would put us right at that 2029, 2030 mark.
So this is what we're proposing, and it's not set in stone. Jordan, who's here with me, is going to be our potential course administrator, director. She's taken the course numerous times. She's feeling very small right now, but she's a big person. The idea is we're proposing this concept is who would be interested. We've got a write-up which we can send around to people afterwards if they want to look at it and offer critique and suggestions and this sounds like it would work and I don't think that would work. We're trying to survey the audience and say who's interested, what makes sense to you, how many days, what kind of content, what price, all that kind of stuff. Because we're talking about a multi-year process. At various points in time, I've taught this course and people have said, I want a certificate. Can you give me a certificate? I say, no. Just because you came listen to me speak for 2 days doesn't mean you learned anything,
Right, agreed.
right? My proposal is, if you can accomplish an excellent bricks reading on 5 different plants, if you can get an excellent tomato, an excellent carrot, an excellent blueberry, an excellent lettuce, I don't care what your 5 are, but if you can prove that you can produce an excellent bricks reading in 5 different crops, then you get the certificate.
And this is after the 3-year course?
If
or-
you can do it at a year and a half,
Okay,
more power to you.
That's the practicum.
So this is what we're proposing, is this kind of a course, and it would be, we're saying a minimum of 50 people, maybe 75, you know, so 10 from New York, 10 from Connecticut, 10 from Massachusetts, like people who are serious, people who actually really want to like dial this in and figure out the logistics of epigenetics. How do you get the best quality seed? How about the minerals? Where are the mineral sources to address the underlying imbalances in the soils of our bioregion? We
Talk
have-
about financial incentive for a farmer who can say my food is nutritious.
Right.
All these dynamics, like I've taught this course for 18 years all over the planet, and people seem to my face to say they really enjoy themselves and they got something out of it. But I don't believe that they're actually accomplishing that level of actual results of success. And the thought is, where better to start this process than on our home turf? You know, I'll host it on my farm. We'll have field walks, field days on other local regional farms. There's some great farmers in Vermont, some great farmers in Connecticut, some great farmers in Massachusetts. So it wouldn't just be on my farm. It'd be a combination of theory and practice on my farm, but also, you know, field days on other farms. So that's the vision. And I'm not sure if we've got a sign-in list. Do we have a sign-in list of who's here?
No, but
No.
Yeah, I thought I saw.
There was a list out there. Do you want to just bring it up?
Yeah.
And I would say, if you don't mind signing in, so Ellen has your contacts.
Yeah.
But especially if you'd be interested in getting the outline. So the way we're proposing to do this right now is, we're gonna send you over the outline we've got written up. And we want you to comment on it. Right? This is only a proposal right now. We're not promising this is gonna happen.
Right.
We're gonna survey the community and say who's interested in how much, etc. And once we've curated all that, we've got the list of who seems to be excited, then we'll say if we're gonna do it or not. Presumably it would start in the fall. This would be like an October start or something like that. I'll say that, and then I'll go back to what I'm about to say right now. But this is the reason that I called Ellen and said, hey Ellen, can I come down here? Is because we wanted to start this process of seeing who's interested in hosting or being part of such an event. And I'd love to do a presentation
Yeah,
with your
yeah.
group.
Yeah, consider that.
Yeah, on the same, the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? Yes. All right. Okay, that all being said, the basic point I'd like to make here, and I think it can be reinforced now that I showed you all the research that said that it was the function of soil life, the level of soil life, that connected to nutrient levels. I have people who've seen me speak before have seen me draw this little graph here, and what I say is, leaves are green. And most people say yes, leaves are green. And I say, what happens in the greenness? And they say, the process of photosynthesis. I say, yes, the process of photosynthesis. And we say, what's the recipe of that? And that recipe is carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight equals oxygen and sugar. And he says, yes, exactly. And then we say, and the oxygen we know leaves the leaves and goes up into the atmosphere, right? And what we don't talk about historically in agronomy, those who study plants don't talk about the fact that for the first 420 million years that plants were growing on planet Earth, a majority of the sugar that they manufactured in the leaves was being injected down into this through the roots into the soil. And the reason that happens is because nobody invented fertilizer until a couple hundred years ago. Because the way the plant evolved, or was evolved by was evolved is by the microbes in the soil. And so this area around the root zone, which we call the rhizosphere, which is where the vast majority of the soil life lives, is fed by this process of photosynthesis. So the plant isn't making sugar, it's dropping it down, injecting it into the soil, feeding the soil life. The soil life are the ones who have the ability to digest the soil. They can exude the acids, exude the bases, solubilize the phosphorus, the potassium, pull the nitrogen out of the atmosphere. It's the microbes that have the capacity of feeding the plant. And so for me, what I always like to say is, I don't care what kind of plant you're growing. It's irrelevant to me whether it's a tomato or an echinacea or an apple or a blueberry. What matters to me is what's the level of function of life in the soil. So there's a few basic environmental conditions that are necessary for life to function. I like to say if you take your hand and you reach down into the soil and about 1.5 inches down, it starts to get really tight underneath your fingernails. Have you ever had that experience? Mm-hmm. Reaching down, right? We call that subsoil compaction. If at a spot not too far down, the soil becomes really, really tight, that means all the people down here don't have any air to breathe. And so they will asphyxiate, right? Air is a critical environmental condition for life in the soil. And if you have tight, hard dirt, you can cover crop all day long, you can mulch all day long. The microbes below this point at which the soil becomes tight and hard can't breathe. And so the plant can't be fed, right? The microbes basically, when they die off, the ability of the plant to feed itself becomes much lower and system dysfunction begins to occur. So I'm just going to run through very rapidly here some of the basic environmental conditions that are necessary. Air is one of them. I don't think that many people talk about air in workshops and courses when you learn about things, because my bias is, or my statement is, nobody's figured out how to sell us air yet. A lot of the things, what's that?
They will know.
It's amazing what they've been figured out to sell us.
Yeah, there's ozone bars, there's oxygen bars in California.
Oxygen bars?
Yeah.
Okay, California is where they would figure it out first. Yeah. I was talking about farmers, us as in farmers, right? They haven't figured out how to sell us. Well, what's this thing in the air? What's 70% of the atmosphere?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen. Right? 78% of every breath of air is nitrogen. There's like 21,000 tons of nitrogen above every acre of land. I think that's the number, maybe it's more than that. 21,000 tons of nitrogen above every acre of land. All the trees in the forest don't have anybody adding nitrogen fertilizer to them. No, there's not many legumes out there. For a really long time, nature hadn't figured out how to cycle the nitrogen that was in the air through the soil to feed the plants. Mm-hmm. And somebody figured out a way to inspire farmers to spend a lot of money buying nitrogen, right? More power to them, right? Good business, right? Except now that the Gulf of Hormuz is shut down and all the, well, it's really going to be quite exciting because all the natural gas that's used to make urea is now like either blown up or shut down. So the cost of nitrogen fertilizer is going to go through the roof, right? I mean,
I'm from Brazil, and there is we have a scientist in Brazil who works with the soil and has developed ways that the soil can regenerate and produce all the nitrogen and all the things that it needs, and that has been amazing and has changed the market and the amount of pesticides we consume.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Her name, I will look it up again. I have it on my phone. Give me 1 second.
Cool.
Yeah.
There was a Russian microbiologist by the name of Krasnodikov who, in the 1970s, had studied every single family of crop plants, every single in the planet. So, what are all the plants that people use to grow food in Africa, in India, in China, in wherever? All the families of all the plants that ever got used to produce food for humans. He studied every single one of them and found that every single one had a symbiotic relationship established with nitrogen-fixing microbes. Every single plant has evolved the ability to work with microbes to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. Right? This is how nature evolved it to work. So now some people might hear me say this, on my farm there's a few rules, and one of them is thou shalt not add nitrogen. Right? If my plants can't harvest their own nitrogen from the atmosphere, I'm a bad farmer. Like, my job is to figure out how to support them in doing that, not how to imbalance the system with an unnatural application of something like that. There's liquid fish, there's blood meal, there's all kinds of things that we're sold that are certified organic and we're told are good for us. I don't use compost. I know that may be anathema to some people, but I say, where in nature do you see piles of organic material being picked up and piled up, turned over, and spit back out?
Well, that's what the leaves are in the fall, when
They fall and they slowly digest in situ.
Right, but that's compost for the trees.
Except where people do stupid things like take all the leaves off the lawn in the fall and stick them in a
Then you
landfill.
have a dead lawn.
Then you have a dead lawn, exactly. So, yeah, I say let the plants die there. I use mulch. I mean, my thought is, yes, organic material is what feeds the system. So we're covering a few things here, right? So food is necessary for the microbes to live. Do you guys get any snow down here this winter? You got snow? Okay, we just lost our snow, right? It was 3 feet there for a while.
Right.
Right. When there's no green leaves making sugar to feed the microbes, then what are they eating all winter? There must be some stockpiled food, some food put away. And so leaves on the ground, dead, mulch, the dead tomato plants, whatever it is, that plant residue actually is food for life. And so you can say anywhere you don't see cover on the land, like I look over here and I see these pieces of plastic, that are protecting the land from weeds growing, but I don't see that, I don't see food over there. Right? I see that plastic cover is like keeping the weeds down, but what's feeding the soil life in that area? For how many months does that land have no food for its microbes on it? Right? That is not strategic. Any land that's kept bare, anybody who cleans out their garden in the fall is creating starvation, mass genocide through starvation of their microbiome in their garden. Right? Pulling everything out in the fall is completely counterproductive if you understand that the foundation is to create a dynamic where life is functioning and life needs food to eat. So air to breathe, food to eat, water to drink is another key one. In many cases, people will water their plants. Who's ever heard of this idea? Watering their plants. And I like to think about a tomato plant. If she's going to be 5-6 feet tall, right? She's a good, healthy, strong woman. Like, as above, so below, she should have a root system that's 5 feet wide below her. If you are watering the part of the land where her stem reaches into the ground, and you're maintaining moisture in that little zone, and it's August, and everywhere around, if you reach out 1 foot, 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and it's powdery dry, what you have accomplished is mass genocide of your microbiome through lack of water. Death through it's not about watering the plant. It's not about feeding the plant. It's not about air for the plant. It's not about the plant. It's about the microbiome. You want to maintain and ensure sufficient air, water, food across the entire soil profile, 12 months of the year, for the microbiome, because that's the bottom of the food chain, right? Only when you're maintaining some of these basic environmental conditions should you expect system function to be operating at a high level. You can be a local farmer. You can be a friendly, person at the farmer's market. You can pick from your garden. This is why not everything from the garden has high bricks readings. Because you did something silly like water the plant, not the microbes. Right? You did something silly like take the dead plant material out of the garden in the fall instead of keep the soil covered and fed over the winter. Right? I like to say, look to nature. Where in nature do you see bare soil? Right? Nature does not like to keep herself unclothed. She covers herself. So anytime that you're managing the land in such a fashion as for there to be bare soil for any period of time, you're violating nature. Just because people told you that straight lines and bare soil is pretty doesn't make it true. Just because humans said this is good doesn't mean nature agrees. And so, yeah, there's a question back there.
I was thinking about, though, human involvement in their garden is compaction. I mean, I have a home garden, I've got the planks down, but my, tomatoes are close to where I walk, and I know that the roots are getting compacted. So I do water in August because I have some mulch around the stems of the tomatoes, but sometimes it's not enough. And I realize, my effect in the garden as a person, that I don't belong there. And either, 20 tomato plants in a row doesn't grow naturally in nature either. So there are systems we put in place that aren't always balanced by a natural order. You know what I'm saying?
And so the question is, how can we be in as much balance as possible? And I would say that, what do they say? One of the aphorisms is that the best fertilizer is the farmer's footstep.
Yeah, okay.
I would say that your love for
That's
your plants
Thank you.
is the X factor that is more important than anything else.
Thank you, that's to
If
me.
you pet them
Yeah,
and you sing to them and you think and you feel heartfelt
yes,
love to them, that cancels out everything else.
Thank
Like
you.
that is actually more important than anything else.
thank you, because that's what I do.
Love supersedes everything.
It's beautiful.
It's completely the case.
I get that.
And
I appreciate that.
yeah, we can go into that.
Thank you, that
Tangent
was
later,
perfect, because I
if you
said
want.
that without the unseen,
We are part of nature.
yes,
We are not nature. It's about how
it's
we
one unit.
work with nature or don't.
I love that.
That's how I see it. All right. Life itself is another one of the key ingredients. So the microbiome, the microbes, ensuring that the plant, at germination has a full spectrum of microbes on its seed. They call it the core microbiome, right? Ideally, you should get seeds from healthy mother plants, and the microbiome from the mother should actually have been basically sucked into the seed, and it comes back out when the seed germinates. But in many cases, we buy seeds from stores and online. They come in packages, and we don't know anything about the health of the mother, or the health of the grandmother, or the health of the great-grandmother. And if those great-grandmother plants and mother plants were raised with chemical fertilizer, with insecticides, et cetera, or they were sickly, even if they were organic, if they weren't well, if they had low Brex readings, if they were susceptible to infestation, we should expect the microbiome of the seeds to be poor. Right? We want, what do they say? The colostrum? Maybe it's about colostrum?
I was reading about that just today, about.
That which comes out of the mother's breast
For another day.
after birth, before milk, is there to establish your gut flora. Right? You as an animal can't digest your food. It's only the people inside of you that digest your food for you. Right? The concept that we're animals is a completely perverse one as well, because the vast majority of the cells in our bodies are not human. They're bacterial and fungal and all kinds of other stuff. So we're actually an ecosystem.
Can I just add to that colostrum thing? I just read about this. A doctor studied that and came up with the theory that it changes for the child who's nursing, depending on if the child is sick, the child needs certain different nutritional aspects.
The mother's milk changes.
Like during the day.
100%.
Right.
Ratio of protein to fat changes as the child grows, but there's a feedback loop from the baby to the
100%.
mother, and the mother's body
If the
knows.
baby is stressed, the mother produces hormones in the milk to cause it to relax.
I don't know
Which
if
is-
that translates to plants in any way.
Um,
How the seed,
well, it's really helpful if you can get at least some colostrum. You're talking about milk. You're talking about how the milk changes, not the colostrum. Colostrum is the thing that comes out
you're right.
of the breast after birth, before milk, which is there to help establish your gut flora, because when you're born, you don't have a gut flora, you can't digest your food. And if you have a baby that doesn't get colostrum and is given formula, it'll become a colicky baby, which means it can't digest its food, which means it cries, it mews, it doesn't sleep, its parents get stressed out, it's sick, it goes to the hospital. The best possible thing you can do if you're a doctor is give mothers formula. If you're a pediatrician, the best thing for business is to not have a well-established gut flora at birth, because that organism can't digest its food and will not thrive. It's great business. It's horrible for our next generations. It's destructive to our culture. But, you know, what's the dynamic here? The dynamic here is many things that happen because of business, not because of well-being for all. That's a separate conversation. We can go into the philosophy and politics and everything else. From the perspective of the plants, you want to make sure that the seed, as it germinates, as it's born, has the colostrum it needs to be able to digest the soil well. So ensuring a full spectrum of microbes on the seed at germination is an extremely powerful technique to kick into gear this whole system function. Probably the least expensive, the most beneficial, most powerful thing you can do is ensure a high level of microbiome diversity in the seed. The last thing I talk about here is minerals. And we talked about nitrogen a minute ago. Nitrogen, to be able to take nitrogen out of the atmosphere requires these things called enzymes. There's a specific enzyme which has in its middle an element called molybdenum. You need 1 pound of molybdenum in an acre of soil for all the nitrogen fixation to occur. You never have to add nitrogen ever again. 1 pound of molybdenum in an acre of soil is all it needs to never need nitrogen again. You solve that problem. If the soils have been tilled and abused over time, and the molybdenum, which is an anion, has leached out, then remineralizing, bringing that back in, is going to be a strategic way to kick the system back into gear. So I talk about these 5 basic environmental conditions: food, air, water, life, and minerals as key things to maintain in season throughout the whole year to optimize system function. This is part of what I would talk about in the longer form course. But it's sort of the foundation of this deeper conversation. So let me talk about some of these questions here. I feel like I'm probably running out of my hour and a half.
It's about 2:30, so just to respect your time, whenever you're, people.
I think there's snacks, and the whole idea is to hang out a little bit afterwards.
Go as long as you want, people leave if you have to.
The idea is this is for culture and community, not just for me.
Yeah.
Right, so it's about relationships and meeting each other, and that's a big part of the point. So yes, whenever I'm done, there is snacks and things out there.
I have a question about cleaning up. There are 1 or 2 things that get fungus in my garden, so those are the only ones I usually take away, and I do cut it and let the roots stay in there, but I take the leaves with the fungus away, isn't that? And then maybe put something else, the better beans that didn't get a fungus on
Yeah.
top, is that?
Who remembers in the olden days, before COVID, when if there were like 15 people in a room, say, and the door was closed, and we sat here for 3 hours, and one person had a cold, what would happen? Some people would get the cold and some people wouldn't. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So that proves that germ theory is wrong.
So just let the fungus stay in the soil?
The fungus is everywhere.
I was gonna say.
I mean, I
Anyway.
know it's in the soil is good, but.
The question is, what was it? It was Beauchamp, Antoine Beauchamp,
Beauchamp,
proposed
yeah.
terrain theory.
Mhm.
And so we've heard of germ theory, which is Pasteur. Louis Pasteur said if there's a germ present, if the disease is around, the host will get attacked. So that's the theory is like you want to get rid of all the diseases because then the plants won't get attacked. Beauchamp said if the host is susceptible, if your immune system is weak, then the pathogen will infest. But if your immune system is strong, you won't get sick, even if you're in the presence of the pathogen. So I like to think of pests and diseases as nature's report card. Nature is telling you if that plant is digestible to a disease or a fungus, then it's not fit for you as a human. Actually, there's a whole way of measuring this, and you said you wanted to keep the rodents away? Who said they wanted? Somebody over here wanted to build a fence to keep the rodents away. It was how do we build the land around it?
I talk about some plants or whatever we can do to keep certain pests
Animals.
away, like deers and things,
Yeah.
rabbits.
Right. So what I'm going to say is bacteria have very non-complex digestive tracts. So complex compounds bacteria can't digest. Larvae have somewhat more complex, but still they can't digest complex compounds. Mildews and blights, the fungi, they're better at digesting stuff, but they still can't digest the complex things. Beetles, the adult forms of insects, they have actually a pretty sophisticated digestive tract, but even they can't digest complex compounds. The only things that can digest the complex compounds that we call flavor are other animals. So if you have bacteria, larvae, fungi, or beetles eating your plants, that's nature telling you they're not fit for you to eat.
Well, they better not grow on tomatoes, because I always get that.
It's
fungus
only when
on
you
their
have
leaves.
deer and rabbits and moles and voles eating your plants, when nature's sending in the mammals to eat your plants, she's saying these plants are fit for mammals to eat. If they're literally digestible to insects and diseases, you shouldn't be eating them. That's the vast majority of the sample, is the stuff that people kill the diseases so they can harvest. It's actually unfit for us. So, I mean, it's a counter, whatever.
You're talking about reading, proper assessment.
And I'm talking about nature speaking to us.
So that, yes, exactly.
Nature speaks-
Interpreting, so we need to interpret, we need to see and read it properly. What's the message to us?
She's not saying you have a deficiency of fungicide.
Yeah.
She's saying this is fit for fungus to eat. Thank you for providing food for my fungus children.
Yes.
I'm going to protect your children from eating this insufficient food, and I'm going to feed my fungus children with it. And only when she sends in animals to eat your crops is she telling you these are actually properly fit for your children to eat. That's my translation of this whole thing of pest and disease pressure. So what that means is if you've got disease presence, that means that there's somehow the plant immune system was weak, and this is the question, is how to improve it next year. I grew up on an organic farm where we rotated our crops religiously.
Yeah.
Every year we rotated our potatoes, we rotated our brassicas, rotated our tomatoes, cucumbers. Every single year the potato bugs decimated the potatoes. Every single year the powdery mildew decimated the cucumbers and squash. Every single year the flea beetles decimated the brassicas. The rotation, the moving around of the plants did not solve the problem of pest susceptibility because we had weak, sickly plants. I would argue that the gut flora of a rabbit is what a baby rabbit should eat, digest, right, in colostrum, as opposed to the gut flora of a pig. Right? You would want piglets, you would think, should be nursing from a pig, calves should be nursing from a cow. If you had tomatoes in this land last year, where they established the gut flora of a tomato, does it make sense to put onions there this year?
You don't rotate.
Of all the things that I do and don't do, I follow certified organic regulations. Everything I do is certifiably organic, except I don't rotate. Does the oak tree rotate? Does the tulip, I mean, the rhododendron, I mean, I don't know. Just because people have told us to do things does not make them right.
Thank you.
And if we,
That makes sense.
the question is, what is nature's pattern?
I know, right?
If nature's been doing things for a long time, and what we're doing isn't working, maybe the first step is humility to say, you know, maybe I should stop learning from books and humans and YouTube. Let me learn from nature. Let me deeply, humbly understand the pattern of nature, and then, you know, shift my practices to be more in harmony with nature and see if that works. I can keep doing half of my garden this way, doing what all the people who know better tell me, and maybe I can do half my garden this way. And that's what I want to do with this course.
Yeah.
Is I want to walk people through this process where we do a day of theory and a day of practice every 3 months. Everybody bring your soil reports, bring your pictures, bring your plans, bring your proposals, like find a trial plot. Let's actually walk each other through the process together of over multiple years, like solving these problems. If we can create a dynamic after 3 years where we've got dozens and dozens of people in our bioregion who all know how to produce healthy plants, then no one should ever have to give a course again. Because we can share with our network and our wisdom, we'll have enough people with strong enough relationships, with the practical knowledge of having achieved excellence, right? That's my vision, is if we can take one spot on the planet and work with enough people long enough to get that level of mastery established where they don't have diseases, they don't have pests, they're producing excellent quality, the vigor and the vitality and the yield is through the roof, the flavor is amazing, and they can share with people in their community who are curious. Right? That's what I think we don't have, and that's what I would love to do with you and others.
Yeah.
So, I actually think I probably have covered most of these things on this list. Is there anything that people have you put up on the list they didn't think I covered?
Quickly, just because you mentioned water before,
Yeah.
that all the organisms need water, and
Yeah.
I used to always overhead water.
Yeah.
And then I switched to drip lines,
Mm-hmm.
and I just can't seem to get it right where I feel like it's dry everywhere else.
How far apart are the drip lines?
They're like less than 6 inches probably. But do you use drip lines,
Between
or-
each line of drip?
Yeah, I have like 3 on my bed, I put a lot on,
I put 3 lines of drip in every 4
yeah,
foot
on
bed.
every 3 foot bed, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I mulch.
Oh, so you do drip, okay, so that's enough
And then
to
I
get
mulch.
all the, and then the mulch, okay.
How does nature water her plants?
Well, overhead, that's
Overhead.
rain.
Oh, no, not only.
In the middle of a drought, when all of the trees in the forest and all the grasses in the fields are green and all the crops in the field are brown,
My motion shade.
where is nature watering her plants from?
It's coming from the bottom.
Underneath.
It's coming from below, from the tidal force, from the water table. If you don't have this subsoil compaction, and you do have moisture down here at 5 feet down, the tidal force, which causes the tides to rise and fall twice a day, will actually bring the water table up and down twice a day.
Wow.
And so plants are watered from below twice a day, and it pushes the carbon dioxide out. When the microbes breathe in oxygen from in this soil, they breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Like if we locked ourselves in this room for long enough, we'd all die because we would run out of oxygen. So you have to have that air transfer. So actually the tidal force moving the water table up, filling the pore space, pushes the carbon dioxide out of the soil into the atmosphere, where it's breathed in by the plant's leaves. And then as the tide falls, it sucks the oxygen down into the soil that the leaves emitted. The land breathes and waters itself twice a day, every day, through nature's process. Like, nature is so powerful. She's doing these things constantly, whether we know about it or not. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
There's an anecdote in a book about how clear cutting in the country of Colombia
Yeah.
changed the desert to, the forest to desert.
Yes.
And with some very unique techniques, they initiated plants again, trees, and it brought up the water table and became forests again. So the roots and the
transpiration,
it pulled the water table back up. The tapping of the
Las gaviotas.
Gaviotas.
But then it was also the animals that brought in the seeds and helped the reforestation.
The whole ecosystem shifted.
But nature is so powerful and profound, and we're so arrogant and cocky, and we think we know better, and I'm just gonna build this infrastructure and sell me this product, and that'll solve the problem. When actually nature's got it figured out, if we could just stop and be humble for a minute.
Yes,
It's so profound.
So is it better to not have a raised bed and just to plant directly into the soil?
How do you define a raised bed?
Surrounded by, I don't know, wood or some kind of barrier, and you're making it taller above the ground?
So what I do on my land, I've got I call it a farm, it's not really that big, but it's, if this was the land, well, so it looks like this. Right, so these are beds. This is the path. This is the bed. This is, what's that, like 6 inches? This is 4 feet. And I make that little divot with a piece of machinery in the back of the tractor. So I call this a raised bed. I'm not bringing in wood. I'm not bringing in stuff in the back of trucks. I'm actually growing in the land. But when we have 8-10 inch rainstorms, right, when hurricanes come through, when it just won't stop raining for 6 weeks at a time, I've got the ability for an aerobic zone to be maintained, because the water table can, basically because the water gets wicked out of the land through this variation in height. So I think bringing in wood and stuff in the back of a truck is one of the biggest scams in history. All farmers grow in the land. So your lawn, your yard, whatever it is where I would grow my food. I wouldn't bring stuff in.
Ledge. I'm from Pound Ridge, and I can't actually plant anything without a pickaxe. So that's why I did the beds.
So you literally have only stone. There's nothing
Our house sits
besides.
up on top of a ledge. It's,
Yeah.
You look down a rock face to the road below.
Okay. So in that unique circumstance, you can argue for bringing stuff in.
It's a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, please don't give me a plant, because that means I have to go with a pickaxe to try to.
I would look around your property and see where something most resembling soil is and start trying to grow stuff there.
Okay.
I would take all the leaves and, grass clippings and stuff like that other people think is a waste material, and I'd put it on my land to start to build up organic matter.
Yeah. I've just been mowing the leaves, and
Beautiful.
we don't really have grass, we just have rock and moss.
Yeah. There's all kinds of that would be a unique circumstance.
Okay.
Most people have something like this, and then they somebody convinces them to buy some wood and put little brackets in it, and probably put something that separates the land from the bed in between it, an impenetrable barrier, and they bring in a product which is half sand and half compost, which they call topsoil. They put in, and they fill the box up with it, and then it shrinks that next year because it was just organic matter which went up into the atmosphere, and it wasn't actually soil. And they spend lots of money in the whole process. So that kind of was bad, I would stay away from.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a deeper conversation, which is why we have a proposal multi-year process, I guess.
I think what I see a lot when I go to some farms is that it is on the soil, a little raised, but then the amount of plastic covering everything, and then you just have an opening for the plant.
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating, and I don't know if the farmers don't even know how to deal with it, or if it's just a problem with.
It's a strategy for getting rid of weeds. It definitely warms the soil up earlier in the spring, so you can get the plants in earlier, but also it's a way to keep the weeds down.
How does it affect the microbe from around the area where the plant is?
The water evaporate.
Well, I mean, if you get one line of drip tape down the middle of the bed, which keeps the plant watered, and then you inject soluble nutrients, what they call fertilizer, through that irrigation line, what you've done is you've created a plant which is addicted to an IV drip.
And that patch that's covered never have enough sunlight as well. Would that be true?
There's all kinds of things that aren't right. But the people selling the black plastic made money. The people selling the drip tape made money. The people selling the fertilizer made money. The people selling the insecticides and fungicides because the plants were on an IV drip and weren't feeding themselves made money. The farmer maybe broke even. The people who that food was sold to, their kids probably spat the food out because it didn't taste very good. Right? It's a completely perverse system, but it's what we've been trained in. We've been trained to sit still, shut up, repeat after me. This indoctrination system that starts at age 2, right, and goes till age 23, teaches us not to think, but to do what we're told. And it's great for business. It's exceptionally good for business. It just happens to be not good for the environment. It happens to be not good for our well-being, for our spirits, for our health. And that's the thing, is how do we break free from this dynamic? And this is why our thought is, with this meter, or when it becomes into your phone, because money's so powerful, and because so many people are getting sick, if we can say, hey, the science is true here, go look at it and see if you want, but you can actually see good and bad, or decent and bad, and choose decent and leave bad. Our thought is that can be a way to jujitsu this, economic structure to try to incentivize things to be done more well, because you can't fight it. You got to figure out a way to inspire people to want to do better.
And what you said is, I think the key is incentive. I mean, all farmers, most of them, I come from a family of farmers, break even, and sometimes not even. So it's a hard business.
It's extremely difficult because we've been trained to be, addicted to the things we're purchasing, right, and not to work with nature, and those wisdoms have been broken. So that's the objective here, is to re-nature ourselves, to reconnect with that wisdom, to create a dynamic where enough of that wisdom is held together that it can be rippling out, to heal that break. Yeah.
I asked a question about contamination. It came from someone in the city. I know you're talking about growing on the land, but if people want to grow food because there's food insecurity, is there something to be done for the bioremediation, or you need to bring in soil and those more?
I think people should have land tenure. They shouldn't be in cities. I think that it should be a right of every citizen in the country to have access to land to live on and grow in, and being locked up in these little cells they call apartments is just part of the industrial system. But that's a bigger conversation.
Do you know anyone working on decontamination?
Good time to kind of wrap things up.
Wait, I have one more very quick question, Dan. Those of us who aren't going to be part of your 50, who aren't growing, what do you want us to do? Spread the word, or what do you need from those of us who won't be in that cohort?
What do you feel inspired to do? I feel like each one of us has our own unique gifts and callings, and if you can find that which you feel compelled to do, that's what you should be doing. That's all I'm doing. I feel like I found something that I feel called and compelled to do, And so I do it. If you feel like talking about it or sharing the ideas is valuable, great. We try to put out the information as freely and broadly as possible. If you have any rich uncles that want to donate to the campaign, join the organization, $5 a month. Shouldn't be too big of a hurdle for anybody.
Do you prefer that than one annual payment?
Joining the organization would be amazing.
No, but I mean the monthly, you prefer the monthly or once a
Can
year?
we just?
It averages out at $5 a
Okay,
month.
okay.
So anybody who thinks what we're doing is valuable, if they, want to tithe to the Church of Nature, $5 a month, go to our organizational website, bionutrient.org/join, and become a member. That always totally helps. If you're a social media warrior and you like to post stuff around and you follow us and you can see what we're posting and share it. We all have our own things.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all.